So let me first introduce myself. So my name is Bart Horsten. I am owner of a company which has already a long experience of doing business in China. So it's mentioned there, 35 years of experience. Now, maybe I'm not that young anymore, but well, my experience with China is about 18 years, but tomorrow we will celebrate our 20-year anniversary. But some of you, of course, may know the company called Janssen Pharmaceutical. So my father was actually the man behind the successful joint venture of Janssen in China, which was set up in the early 80s. But we will not talk about that today. But today, we do still help Belgian or, say, Western European companies to do business in China, sourcing from China, selling to China, different strategic advice, operational advice. And since the beginning of this year, we set up a new company, which is called My China Web, really focusing on helping customers sell online in China, set up their Chinese website, and be active on social media in China. Because, as you will find out today, this is really a different market, a very isolated market. So first I'm going to show you this little movie.
This is you. You're an ambitious Western company or organization, working hard every day to grow your business. And now, you want to endeavor on your company's biggest adventure to date, China. You already have a website and you're active on social media. Great! But there's just one slight issue. This is what the Chinese customer has to deal with. Long loading times, language barrier, or they can't access your website at all. And this is the sad result. That's why we founded My China Web. So what do? We handle the design and the translation, making sure that your website is adapted to the specific browsing habits of your Chinese customers. And most important, we make sure that your brand enjoys visibility. So you may know that the Chinese don't use Google or Facebook. They have their own. When we help, your brand will pop up on Chinese search engines and Chinese social media, and we help you to sell online in China. So, are you looking for a one-stop service to start a sustainable presence in China? Congratulations, you found it. Check out My China Web.
So as I explained in the introduction, so we help customers to, first of all, define a general strategy for China. And if you want to sell your products to China, you need to have an online strategy. But as explained in the little movie, if you have a nice web shop in Belgium, or you are active on social media like Facebook or any other platform, probably you will not be successful in China because the Chinese consumer will not find you. So you need to have a strategy for your online marketing and online sales in China. This also includes, for example, we have customers who are in the tourist business or even universities who want to attract Chinese tourists or Chinese students. So they also need to be active on social media because you cannot ignore it, because people may think, hey, but if a tourist comes to Belgium or if a student comes to study at a university in Europe, well, they need to talk English. So why do we need a Chinese website, or why do we need communication in Chinese? But in fact, mostly their parents are deciding for them, and most of the parents do not speak any English. So you need to have some information in Chinese. Otherwise, they will go to France or Holland or UK or any other university that offers a website in Chinese or information on social media in Chinese. But as I said, we will not talk too much about social media. We'll focus on this cross-border e-commerce. But I do need to explain a little bit how it works, because you all, I'm sure, have heard about Alibaba. So this is one of the three big names, because there's actually three. BAT. B stands for Baidu, which is actually the Chinese search engine. Google is not really very popular, or actually not even used at all in China. Alibaba we'll talk about in a minute. And then Tencent used to start as a mobile gaming company, but now has developed a very, very popular chat app with a lot of applications. And in fact, what you see is that although these three companies have a different origin, they are really fighting on each other's businesses. So you see Tencent is now also becoming active in e-commerce. Baidu is also very aggressive in buying companies, different, so advertising and so you name it. So all these three big names are really fighting a very, very competitive fight. But let's introduce Alibaba. Last week, I'm not sure if you know, but last week they had a launching workshop in Antwerp, in Brussels, where they introduced their platforms. So I need to maybe give you a little bit explanation which is which. When I was starting the China business 15, 20 years ago, I would often go to Alibaba.com because there you find a lot of suppliers. Suppose I want to buy a product from China, so I go to find suppliers on Alibaba.com, and there you will find a list. You just mention your product, and you find a list of 10, 20, 100, 1,000 different suppliers. Not all of them are manufacturers, so that's something you need to be very careful. So that's the B2B platform, international B2B. Taobao, Ed already briefly mentioned, this is really a lot of Chinese living in China or Chinese living abroad have opened their own Taobao. It's like an eBay. Anybody can open a web shop, but it's mostly for Chinese consumers and C2C, not B2B, C2C. Small businesses, one-person company, and a lot of problems with fake products, as mentioned already. Then we have Tmall.com. Tmall.com is mainly for B2C, but mainly for companies in China, so China-registered companies. So this can be Chinese companies, but also foreign-invested companies with a Chinese business license. So there, for example, a lot of foreign brands, also very big names, you name it, Adidas, Nike, Zara, even Amazon has a web shop on Alibaba. So instead of trying to sell your products on your own, suppose I'm a Chinese company, I can open my own web shop, but it is much more efficient if you open a web shop on the Tmall platform, because there they have about 60% market share. So the traffic on the Tmall platform is much, much bigger than if you would have to start from zero and open your own web shop in China. AliExpress is international B2C, so buying products from Chinese suppliers to Western consumers. So this is also not what we're talking about today. And then Tmall Global, this is the cross-border e-commerce platform from Alibaba. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So as I already mentioned, Tmall has about 56 or a little less than 60% market share. There's another big player, it's JD.com. So together they have about 70% market share. So basically you could say that if you want to sell your products, if you have a company in China and you want to sell your products in China, it may be a good idea to sell it on Tmall or JD.com, provided that you have the money, because that's where the trick is. Nowadays, Alibaba and JD, they are so powerful that actually they're only interested in the big brands and the big names. So, and even if you are a small brand and you want to sell your products on Tmall, you really need to work with their partners. So that means you have to invest a lot in marketing, logistics. So basically they will take care of the logistics and the customer service. They can help you. Payments can be organized. So the system is really in place, very efficient. Also products are distributed all over China, so you don't need to live in Shanghai to get your products sent by Tmall. No, you can basically anywhere in China. The logistics cost is very cheap. So basically, it's a very interesting way. But as I said, you really need to invest in marketing. And if your product is not selling well on Tmall, basically they will kick you out. So the conditions, as I mentioned, you need to have a company in China. You need to pay a deposit. And as I said, if you don't perform well, not only they will kick you out, but they will keep your deposit. You need to pay an annual subscription fee. They will charge commission. So you can imagine most of my customers are SMEs, small and medium-sized. Most of them do not have a very, very big famous brand, maybe famous in Belgium. But so for them, maybe to sell their products on Tmall or JD is maybe a little bit too much, at least in the beginning. So as an entry mode, it's maybe a little too risky, unless you have a lot of money to spend. Of course, you could also choose many of the other platforms. So of course, the market share is very, very small, but You should imagine, there's 1 billion consumers. So even if you choose a platform which only has 5% market share, for example, it's still several millions or tens of millions of potential customers. So, but the investment is lower, so they will not charge you this high deposit. The commission fees will be lower, or even zero commission. So very often, for example, if you have a food product, you have certain platforms, some of them are mentioned here, which allow you to sell. And so they focus on food and beverages, for example. So they allow you to sell to a channel which is, I think, very suitable for your products. Okay, they don't have the traffic like Tmall, but nevertheless, it's still a very interesting way to sell your products in China. But, as I mentioned, your company needs to be registered in China. So the step is maybe still a little bit, the threshold, maybe still a little bit too big, because if you really need to set up your company in China, it's already a big decision. So that's why there's a cross-border e-commerce. So meaning you sell your products from your European warehouse directly to the Chinese consumer. Ed was talking about this problem of smuggling. So I mentioned tomorrow we have a 20-year anniversary, and I have 10 of my Chinese colleagues coming to Belgium. And so most of them, they have a big suitcase. And so they are here for 10 days, and they take maybe 5 pieces of clothing, and the rest of the suitcase is empty, because indeed they have a shopping list from all their friends and families. They need to buy chocolates and even fancy watches and diamonds. So they go back home with a full suitcase of Belgian products. But indeed, this is not really smuggling, but some people really make a business out of it. So what did the Chinese government say? We need to protect the consumer, because, of course, what if I would have a small business and smuggling iPhones from Hong Kong to just across the border to Shenzhen? I can make some money, but what if there's a problem with my iPhone? So who do I talk to? Do I send it back? No, because it was smuggled in the country. So the consumer is not protected. Also, the Chinese government, if there's any gray channel, the Chinese government will not have any taxes income. So the Chinese government, they are not stupid. So they were looking for a way to allow this cross-border e-commerce, find a way to protect the consumer. So if there is a defect, the consumer should be able to send the goods back to a designated address in China. Also, if you want to sell your products on these platforms, you need to have a customer service in Chinese, but you can find companies who can help you with that. So this is a very intelligent way by the Chinese government to open this international channel, but at the same time, so by lowering taxes, they can still get tax income, which they do not get through this smuggling channel. So, and the interesting thing about it is that you can only use these cross-border e-commerce channels if your company is not registered in China. So this seems like a gift from heaven. So now, what does this mean? You don't have your company in China, but you can sell your products directly to the Chinese consumer. Wow, this is it. So the way it works, so there's 2 ways basically. The first way would be that you keep your products in your warehouse in Belgium or in Holland or whatever, and so you set up this web shop on one of these platforms. Again, there's more. Tmall Global is the biggest one again, so it's part of Alibaba. Then there's JD Worldwide and these other platforms. So the Chinese government has created these, and so you can discuss with them. You open your web shop, so it will be a web shop in Chinese on those platforms. They organize the payment, they organize the logistics for you, and the customer will place the order. So there's a customer in China, can be somewhere in the middle of China. The customer will place the order, then he will pay you in Chinese currency, but then you will get your money on your bank account in Europe, and then as soon as you get the order, you will ship your goods to China. But of course, shipping goods to China can take some time, can be expensive. So for certain products, it's maybe not that suitable, because the consumer is not willing to wait so long for a certain product which he can also buy in the local supermarket. So, for example, there's a company from Holland. They have design furniture, very, very unique, very, very nice design furniture. So this is something where the customer is willing to wait like 7 days or 10 days, no problem. But if you have a product which is already for sale in most for imported products supermarkets in China, your customer will prefer to or buy it online in China, because he can also get it in China, or just go to the supermarket. And so your product needs to be fit for this kind of really cross-border shipping. So suppose you have a product where shipping it from Europe directly to China is too complicated, or for example, your product has a certain validity date, it's a food product, so it has to be shipped cooled or frozen. So how do you do that? This long distance shipping, so it's maybe a little bit tricky. So another way to do it is that you can send your goods to a warehouse in China. It can be a full container, it can be a few pallets, and then your goods will be stored in a bonded warehouse in China. So there is not yet, customs clearance is not yet done, so it's a bonded warehouse in China. So once your customer places the order on one of those cross-border e-commerce platforms, only then duties will have to be paid. So then you have a logistics partner. For example, you set up this cross-border e-commerce platform with a platform from Shanghai. So you ship your goods, can be a full container or whatever, to a warehouse in China, a bonded warehouse. Then the customer places the order. The goods will be, so 1 or 2 packs or whatever, will be taken from the warehouse. Customs declaration, VAT needs to be paid, and then shipped to the customer directly. So then your customer will have a product directly imported from Europe, but he will have it within 24 hours, or faster even. So that's a way to solve this problem of logistics or this long distance shipment. Again, you need to look into it case by case. Maybe some products will not be suitable for this business, others may be suitable, but in any case, I think you should see this as a temporary entry mode, because this is something you can do to start, to get to know the Chinese market. For example, if you have a food product, you can see which tastes are most popular for my Chinese consumer. And then later on, in my second phase, you can then really open your office in China and also start selling your products through the normal distribution channel in supermarkets or any other channels. So I always advise my customers, yes, cross-border e-commerce, definitely worthwhile to consider, but do not see this as a long-term strategy. Use it as a first entry mode into China. So I mentioned we will not talk about too much about social media, but I do need to talk about m-commerce, so M stands for mobile. Ed already mentioned that most Chinese accessing the internet actually go on the internet through mobile. So that's also, if they are on their mobile phone, they also like to shop on their mobile phone. So now there is an app which is called WeChat. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it started as a chat app, but it has developed extremely fast into a very, very multiple application feature, allowing Chinese consumers to buy products, to chat with friends, to give gifts to friends, to order a taxi, to order food, to pay when they go to supermarket. People can just use their iPhone or their mobile phone, and through the WeChat payment system, they can also pay their bills. So there's many of my Chinese colleagues, they don't carry any cash anymore. They only do payments by WeChat. And they have no problem at all. Before I heard many Western consumers are quite concerned to link their bank account to Facebook, for example. But in China, this is absolutely no problem. Chinese people, they link their bank account to WeChat and they start paying online, paying by mobile phone. This is no concern at all. So you can see that this opens a lot of opportunities for brands to also sell their products through these mobile apps. So most of you know this picture, or at least looks familiar. So you have your mobile phone, and you see all these applications. You can make phone calls, or go on Facebook, or Google+, or Instagram, or like a train ticket app, or whatever. So but each single application, you have a different app. In China, life is very easy, because it's all there. So WeChat combines all these different applications. So if you plan to go to China, first of all, I tell you, maybe you need to prepare well and blah, 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 blah. Now I'm talking as a consultant. But my second advice to you would be, install WeChat before you go, because the second question you get from your Chinese partner will be, what's your WeChat ID? Because all of them use it. You cannot live without in China. As a company, you can have also a WeChat account, like a Facebook account, but then a WeChat account. But there's one condition, also for this, you need to have a company in China. So, but there's ways around this, because nowadays you can use an existing company in China, like my company, for example. We are the owner of at least 30 different WeChat accounts of my customers. So that is possible. So in end effect, you don't really need a company, because you can find a company who can manage your WeChat account for you. So this is just a few final slides. So basically, if you think about going to China, make sure you have a strategy, because unfortunately, I see a lot of companies who just go to China without any plan, and then they end up being cheated, and then they are surprised what happened. So make sure you have a strategy, then adapt it to the Chinese business and the Chinese business culture, because forget about everything. Even if you are very successful in Africa and in South America or any other country, when you go to China, you need to localize, because your China strategy may be completely different from your strategy in any other markets. And be committed, because just going to China once a year and then hoping your projects will be successful probably will not work. So, Ed, to conclude, do we need to be afraid of Alibaba, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, this is a picture that appeared in the Dutch press, I think around May this year, when it was announced that Alibaba opened their offices in Amsterdam, and they also will have offices here in Belgium. And it was brought by the news in the Netherlands as a big threat that Alibaba, but also later Amazon, might come here to destroy our local players like Bol.com and Coolblue. A big mistake that the press makes when writing about this is that they think that Alibaba is coming here to sell us Chinese products. But that's not the case, at least not for a very long time. The reason why they are coming here is they want to find customers, and the customer of Alibaba is the one that pays for the platforms, is the one that pays for the advertising. In other words, are the brands and are the companies that want to sell their products to the Chinese people. So this is a completely incorrect picture, and there is a lot of opportunity. I'm not saying that you should work with Alibaba. As Bart said, there are many other platforms out there, but do look into it if you're interested in this, because it does definitely have opportunities. That's basically what we would like to share with you today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.